Welcome to The Market That Moves America, a podcast from the National Center for the Middle Market. The center is the leading source of knowledge, leadership, and innovative research on the middle market economy. Throughout our podcast, we will feature middle market leaders and stakeholders to hear their real-world perspectives on trends and emerging issues.
Accounts payable automation is a critical area of the finance, accounting, and supply chain of most companies. Yet little focus is paid on the specific tools and new technology making this function more efficient, secure, and accurate. Today, I'll be talking with Steve Weber of PaperTrl, an AP automation company and NCMM member company. Welcome to The Market That Moves America. I'm Doug Farron, Managing Director at the National Center for the Middle Market, located at The Ohio State University Fisher College of Business. And I'm really excited about today's conversation. Joining me today is Steve Weber from PaperTrl. PaperTrl is an AP automation product for mid-sized firms. So welcome, Steve.
Hi, Doug. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thanks.
Good.
Looking forward to talking with you, Steve. We're excited to have PaperTrl as one of our member companies at the NCMM, and obviously we share a common relationship with Visa, and glad that they were able to introduce you guys to us. So first, can you tell us just a little bit about your personal background? What you've done throughout your career, and then how PaperTrl came about.
Sure. So I come from a rather large family. I'm number 7 of 8 children. And my family moved to Columbus when I was about 4 or 5 years old from St. Louis. So lived here my whole life, went to school at DeVry. And then my first job out of school was with a software company. And I kind of knew I was pretty lucky is before going to school, I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I was already working with computers and software a little bit in my dad's business, helping him to develop what would have been a kind of lightweight CRM system for the Commodore 64. I knew I wanted to work in software, and specifically, I wanted to work in software that made people's lives easier, where you could see sort of the direct impact the software had on people's jobs. And so worked for Sterling Commerce for many years, worked my way up to become a vice president. But ultimately, I knew that I wanted to step out and go do my own thing. So back in 2001, so about, 22 years ago, I left Sterling and stepped out and started what would be my first of 3 software startups. The first one was a Microsoft partner, and we were focused in retail, worked with many retailers here around Columbus, doing point of sale and integration from point of sale back to ERP systems. And then, with that integration component, that became more and more of what we became known for. And we helped Microsoft land some of their largest retail accounts for point of sale because of our integration capabilities. And so ultimately that integration software ended up becoming the core of the business. We got out of the Microsoft reseller business and just focused on doing integration work for retailers. And this was in maybe 2008 when multi-channel retail was first taking off and retailers needed to do stuff like buy online, pick up in store. We developed a lot of software for companies like Herschel Supply was one of our customers, and here locally, Ohio Mulch, a number of folks, helping them get through that revolution. And then my partner, my co-founder of Then Channel ended up taking over that company and buying out all the shareholders. And then, me and our COO at the time, our chief marketing officer at the time, Shilpa Morano, stepped out and created our own little consultancy, helping software companies to raise money from venture capitalists or help them with product development. And that's really how we got involved with PaperTrl. PaperTrl was a software product that had been developed by a federal contractor back in 2015-16 for their own internal use. And what PaperTrl does is accounts payable automation. So everything from taking vendor bills, scanning them into the system, being able to route them for approval internally, and then pay the invoices, through the system. And we got really excited about the product because just kind of going back to the theme of helping companies, it enabled Tidewater to reduce their accounts payable staff down from about 5 people to 2 people. They had about 1,500 vendors they were supporting, so lots of people in AP. They were able to reduce staff from 5 people down to about 2 people. Not only that, they were able, this federal contractor was able to get more than 500 of their vendors up and running on the software in less than 3 months.
Wow.
And so they weren't even a software company, and that really spoke to how easy the software was to use and how motivated the organizations were to use it. And so we got really excited about that, because even if you know what you're doing, getting 500 users up and running is not easy.
Sure. It sounds like a huge task.
Yeah, so we worked with them for a while to develop the product and take it to market, and got really excited about it. And kind of long story short, last year we ended up acquiring the software away and begin our own focus on growing PaperTrl.
Interesting. That's quite a career progression. So my first question for you, from kind of your point of view, obviously deep experience in all different types of software, as you said, that help companies. What do you see as some of the kind of emerging pain points or issues that companies are dealing with? You kind of touched on, costs and efficiency. So you kind of reduce the need for maybe large departments of people to manage this, where the software can step in. But
right.
Are there any other emerging patterns or trends as you talk to companies where, specifically the type of work that PaperTrl does and the benefit of the software, you really see it being extremely helpful?
Well, certainly the labor piece, as we mentioned, is a big part of it, especially with the shortage of, we work with the Ohio Society of CPAs, and there's the labor shortage happening everywhere. But they're able to say, look, there are a lot of CPAs and folks in the accounting field that are retiring, and they're not being replaced nearly fast enough. And so not only does that impact accounting firms, but it impacts businesses as well, and the accounting departments inside businesses. So certainly the labor shortage drives the need for automation. But right now, interestingly enough, we hear about the downsides of inflation all the time and the higher interest rates. The upside of that is that cash being held in just conventional checking accounts for businesses is actually earning decent interest sitting in the bank. And companies need and want the ability to hold on to their cash longer, and have the opportunity for some of those high yield interest payments on their cash. And so, unfortunately, most of the AP, if not all of the AP automation software in the space today, doesn't give companies the opportunity to do that. They kind of require companies to pre-fund all of their payments to vendors, sometimes 7 to 10 days before the invoices are due. So as such, companies aren't able to benefit from that, from holding onto their cash that long.
Yeah. How about accuracy? Do you see any benefits from more accurate transactions where there less chance of a human mistake or error?
Oh, absolutely. I think it was when I was at Sterling back in the EDI business, folks Home Depot would talk about the fact that it costs them $25 to process an invoice, and that's if it's right. It costs about $125 to process an inaccurate invoice if you have to chase it down. And so the same applies here. it's that. And then, I'd also add to it, just right along with that, fraud is also such a huge problem. Fraud and phishing attacks, have become so rampant. And they're targeted right at accounts payable departments, folks getting emails inside the company saying, "Hey, I'm so-and-so vendor and we've changed our bank. Can you please update your ACH payments for us?"
Yeah.
Right?
Right. So tell me why you see the middle market as maybe the ideal target customer for PaperTrl. I think I might know the answer to that, but I'd like to hear you talk about that a little bit.
So there's probably a couple of different reasons, not the least of which is that the trends and the changes that have been happening in mid-market accounting software. The cloud creates opportunities and for all sorts of different software. But when you look at the investments that your traditional ERP software companies are making in upgrading and moving companies to the cloud, most of the investment is happening in the middle market ERP software packages. So specifically, we're talking about Sage and Acumatica, Microsoft Business Central, QuickBooks at that lower end of the middle market. It's much easier for software companies, first of all, to address that market because it's not highly complex. And there's lots of add-ons being written specifically into the middle, for middle market companies because it's large enough that, and those opportunities are lucrative enough that it makes sense for companies to build add-ons, et cetera, for those software packages. So all this new software and all the cloud software and the open APIs and all of that makes it very fertile ground for a company like us that is a third-party software developer who needs to integrate into all those software packages to make our software work. It makes it much more fertile than trying to go upmarket with the big enterprises who are still on these quasi-proprietary versions of SAP and Oracle and that stuff, or the very small users whose software may not have that level of sophistication yet.
Yeah, right. So can you describe to us what the marketplace looks like in terms of AP automation and kind of the space where PaperTrl plays? I'm sure there are probably a number of different firms and competitors out there. You mentioned that this was started by a government contractor, but what do you why do you think kind of your unique solution was needed, or kind of what's the specific role that it fills?
Sure. So kind of going along with what I just talked about with the ERP systems, at the same time that those software companies were opening up their technology, banking was also opening up their technology. The banks were opening up. There's this concept called open banking, which basically gives you the ability to hit a bank's API, like US Bank or Chase Bank or whoever, hit their API to be able to do things like write checks, cut checks, or make ACH payments or send credit card, virtual card payments. And those, unfortunately, most software packages weren't taking advantage of those open APIs that the banks had. And so what we saw, and again, this gets back to this whole idea of float. What we saw is that most of the players in the space, the way they were handling their customers' payments is by using these, because open banking didn't exist, 10, 15 years ago when most of them wrote their software. The only way they could make vendor payments is to work like a payroll company and say, okay, I'm going to just draw all the cash we need. So I'm going to pre-fund all the payments I need to make on your behalf out of your bank account, Mr. Customer. Mm-hmm. And then I'm going to execute the payments on your behalf because I can control my own checking account. I can control how the payments are made and make ACHs myself. And, I don't need to talk to your bank. I can do that all myself. And so So they did that, and then those software companies saw the opportunity to not only make money on subscriptions and software licensing in that space, but they're like, if we hold on to this cash for one night, we might make $5 million in interest. If we hold on for 2 nights, we might earn $10 million in interest. And so the amount of time it started to take to make customers' payments were taking longer and longer. And if you go look out on the internet and search on some of the players in the space today, you'll find lots of conversation on public forums about how companies are really not trusting their AP automation companies anymore to make timely payments. And they suspect that they're holding onto their cash, with these interest rates the way they are. So we saw the opportunity to say, look, we could take advantage of this open banking stuff, and instead of pulling the cash into our hands, we leave it in the customer's bank account, and we provide all the benefits of AP automation, all of the workflow capability. But then when it's time to pay the vendor, we just signal the bank to make an ACH or cut a check or issue a virtual card. And so as such, customer gets to hold on to their cash for longer, and the customer gets paid. And so we see this as, exceptionally disruptive in this space, that it's going to cause a lot of problems for our competitors, but really have great benefit to the end customer as well as to the member banks. We sell our software through banks primarily, and the banks have the opportunity to benefit by getting to hold on to customers' deposits for longer, issue more credit cards, et cetera.
Yeah, that's exactly where I was going to go with my next question, but I think you already covered it, which was kind of heard about the vendors. We got the software piece, and then the roles of the banks. So you touched a little bit on kind of fraud and those types of things. In addition to what you mentioned a little earlier, is there anything else that you could point out in terms of like why this becomes a better process or additional protections over certainly physical check writing? I mean, it's just obvious, but are there other fraud areas that should be of concern?
So so I mentioned phishing and as you mentioned, check washing and check writing, just the old fashioned paper checks have become real security risks for companies. And then even paying with credit card over the phone, and you probably wouldn't be surprised, Doug, by how many companies are still just calling up vendors and giving out credit card numbers over the phone to make payments. And so, there are a lot of new secure digital payment methods that the market's not aware of. Then even as we've talked to like the Ohio Society of CPAs, it's things that they themselves and they know their members are not aware of are these the digital payment options like virtual cards, being able to issue cards directly to digital wallets without the opportunity for someone to intercede them, or having the ability to send secure payments, digital card payments inside messages, secure email messages, is also just all of this is new technology that creates opportunity for companies to avoid fraud, or if fraud does occur, to detect it much, much earlier, get their arms around it and stop it before it becomes a big issue.
Yeah, sure. So one of the things, as we kind of close here, we've kind of talked down into the weeds a little bit. So stepping back, thinking at a little bit higher level, I mean, what are some of the ways that just digital payments in general can have an effect on the supply chain, particularly the relationships between all the different people in a supply chain? Can you talk about that a little bit?
So some of it I mentioned earlier, right? Like having control over how payments are made. With digital payments, there have been a lot of changes, even just over this summer. The Fed has now enabled the banking system to do same day to do same-day real-time payments. And so there's much, much greater opportunity through the banks to be able to take advantage of those types of payment methods. So it's no longer just about check, cash, and ACH. Now with virtual card payments, through our partners like Visa, through the real-time payment options, companies have much, much greater opportunity to pay vendors electronically and more securely than they've been able to in the past. They also, digital payments also offer just a lot more auditability and the ability to track them to know for certain that they've been delivered on time.
Yeah, certainly. Having been a supply chain professional in current life, we always talked about inventory visibility, knowing where products were in supply chain, but I'm sure it's just as important to kind of know where the money is flowing, both up and down. So
that's right.
Really interesting. Well, hey, Steve, I want to thank you for your time. This has been a great conversation. I'm sure our listeners have learned quite a bit, if they don't know much, about AP automation and this whole space, and just really interested to hear about all the exciting things that PaperTrl is doing. So congratulations, and wish you all luck in the future as you continue to grow.
Yeah, thanks, Doug. It was a great conversation. I enjoyed it. Great questions. So thank you.
Okay. Well, if you, for anyone who'd like to learn more about PaperTrl, you can visit their website, which is PaperTrl TRL. It's papertrl.com. And again, thank you for listening today.
Thank you for listening to The Market That Moves America. Never miss a new episode by subscribing anywhere podcasts can be found. You can also subscribe to our email newsletter at middlemarketcenter.org.